The Confiscation Act of 1862, or Second Confiscation Act, was a law passed by the United States Congress during the American Civil War. Section 13 of the Act formed the legal basis for President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. Nature of the law. The Confiscation Act was passed on July 17, 1862. The defining characteristic of the Act was that it called for court proceedings for seizure of land and property from disloyal citizens in the South, as well as the emancipation of their slaves that came under Union control. Under this Act, conviction of treason against the U.S. could be punishable by death or carry a minimum prison sentence of 5 years and a minimum fine of $10,000. This law also stated that any citizen convicted of aiding and abetting any person known to have committed treason against the United States could be imprisoned for up to 10 years and face a maximum fine of $200,000 if convicted. This law specifically targeted the seizure of property of any Confederate military officer, Confederate public office holder, persons who have taken an oath of allegiance to the Confederacy, or any citizen of a loyal Union state who has given aid or support to any of the aforementioned traitors to the United States of America. One slave, March Haynes, began smuggling slaves to the freedom of the Union lines with the help of Union General Quincy Adams Gilmore. In return for his help, Haynes provided Gilmore with exact and valuable information on the location of Confederate defenses and the strength of their forces. Text of the Act. Chap. CXCV, an act to suppress insurrection, to punish treason and rebellion, to seize and confiscate the property of rebels, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that every person who shall hereafter commit the crime of treason against the United States, and shall be adjudged guilty thereof, shall suffer death, and all his slaves, if any, shall be declared and made free, or, at the discretion of the court, he shall be imprisoned for not less than 5 years and fined not less than $10,000, and all his slaves, if any, shall be declared and made free. Said fine shall be levied and collected on any or all of the property, real and personal, excluding slaves, of which the said person so convicted was the owner at the time of committing the said crime, any sale or conveyance to the contrary notwithstanding. Sec. 2. And be it further enacted, that if any person shall hereafter incite, set on foot, assist, or engage in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States, or the laws thereof, or shall give aid or comfort thereto, or shall engage in, or give aid and comfort to, any such existing rebellion or insurrection, and be convicted thereof, such person shall be punished by imprisonment for a period not exceeding 10 years, or by a fine not exceeding $10,000. And by the liberation of all his slaves, if any he have, or by both of said punishments, at the discretion of the court. Sec. 3. And be it further enacted, that every person guilty of either of the offences described in this Act shall be forever incapable and disqualified to hold any office under the United States. Sec. 4. And be it further enacted, that this Act shall not be construed in any way to affect or alter the prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person or persons guilty of treason against the United States before the passage of this Act, unless such person is convicted under this Act. Sec. 5. And be it further enacted, that, to ensure the speedy termination of the present rebellion, it shall be the duty of the President of the United States to cause the seizure of all the estate and property, money, stocks, credits, and effects of the persons hereinafter named in this section, and to apply and use the same and the proceeds thereof for the support of the Army of the United States, that is to say, first, of any person hereafter acting as an officer of the Army or Navy of the rebels in arms against the government of the United States. Secondly, of any person hereafter acting as President, Vice President, Member of Congress, Judge of any court, Cabinet officer, Foreign Minister, Commissioner or Consul of the so-called Confederate States of America. Thirdly, of any person acting as governor of a state, member of a convention or legislature, or judge of any court of any of the so-called Confederate States of America. Fourthly, of any person who, having held an office of honor, trust, or profit in the United States, shall hereafter hold an office in the so-called Confederate States of America. Fifthly, of any person hereafter holding any office or agency under the government of the so-called Confederate States of America, or under any of the several states of the said Confederacy, or the laws thereof, whether such office or agency be national, state, or municipal in its name or character, provided that the persons, thirdly, fourthly, and fifthly above described shall have accepted their appointment or election since the date of the pretended ordinance of secession of the state, or shall have taken an oath of allegiance to, or to support the Constitution of the so-called Confederate States. Sixthly, of any person who, owning property in any loyal state or territory of the United States, or in the District of Columbia, shall hereafter assist and give aid and comfort to such rebellion, and all sales, transfers, or conveyances of any such property shall be null and void, and it shall be a sufficient bar to any suit brought by such person for the possession or the use of such property, or any of it, to allege and prove that he is one of the persons described in this section. Sec. 6. And be it further enacted, that if any person within any state or territory of the United States, other than those named as aforesaid, after the passage of this act, being engaged in armed rebellion against the government of the United States, or aiding or abetting such rebellion, shall not, within 60 days after public warning and proclamation duly given and made by the President of the United States, cease to aid, countenance, and abet such rebellion, and return to his allegiance to the United States, all the estate and property, moneys, stocks, and credits of such person shall be liable to seizure as aforesaid, and it shall be the duty of the President to seize and use them as aforesaid or the proceeds thereof, and all sales, transfers, or conveyances of any such property after the expiration of the said 60 days from the date of such warning and proclamation shall be null and void, and it shall be a sufficient bar to any suit brought by such person for the possession or the use of such property, or any of it, to allege and prove that he is one of the persons described in this section. Sec. 7. And be it further enacted, that, to secure the condemnation and sale of any of such property, after the same shall have been seized, so that it may be made available for the purpose aforesaid, proceedings in rem shall be instituted in the name of the United States in any district court thereof, or in any territorial court, or in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, within which the property above described, or any part thereof, may be found, or into which the same, if movable, may first be brought, which proceedings shall conform as nearly as may be to proceedings in admiralty or revenue cases, and if said property, whether real or personal, shall be found to have belonged to a person engaged in rebellion, or who has given aid or comfort thereto, the same shall be condemned as enemy's property and become the property of the United States, and may be disposed of as the court shall decree, and the proceeds thereof paid into the Treasury of the United States for the purposes aforesaid. Sec. 8. And be it further enacted, that the several courts aforesaid shall have power to make such orders, establish such forms of decree and sale, indirect such deeds and conveyances to be executed and delivered by the marshals thereof where real estate shall be the subject of sale, as shall fitly and efficiently effect the purposes of this act, and vest in the purchases of such property good and valid titles thereto, and the said courts shall have power to allow such fees and charges of their officers as shall be reasonable and proper in the premises. Sec. 9. And be it further enacted, that all slaves of persons who shall hereafter be engaged in rebellion against the government of the United States, or who shall in any way give aid or comfort thereto, escaping from such persons and taking refuge within the lines of the army, and all slaves captured from such persons or deserted by them and coming under the control of the government of the United States, and all slaves of such person found on, or being within any place occupied by rebel forces, and afterwards occupied by the forces of the United States, shall be deemed captives of war, and shall be forever free of their servitude, and not again held as slaves. Sec. 10. And be it further enacted, that no slave escaping into any state, territory, or the District of Columbia, from any other state, shall be delivered up, or in any way impeded or hindered of his liberty, except for crime, or some offense against the laws, unless the person claiming said fugitive shall first make oath that the person to whom the labor or service of such fugitive is alleged to be due is his lawful owner, and has not borne arms against the United States in the present rebellion, nor in any way given aid and comfort thereto, and no person engaged in the military or naval service of the United States shall, under any pretense whatever, assume to decide on the validity of the claim of any person to the service or labor of any other person, or surrender up any such person to the claimant, on pain of being dismissed from the service. Sec. 11. And be it further enacted, that the President of the United States is authorized to employ as many persons of African descent as he may deem necessary and proper for the suppression of this rebellion, and for this purpose he may organize and use them in such manner as he may judge best for the public welfare. Sec. 12. And be it further enacted, that the President of the United States is hereby authorized to make provision for the transportation, colonization, and settlement, in some tropical country beyond the limits of the United States, of such persons of the African race, made free by the provisions of this act, as may be willing to emigrate, having first obtained the consent of the government of said country to their protection and settlement within the same, with all the rights and privileges of freemen. Sec. 13. And be it further enacted, that the President is hereby authorized, at any time hereafter, by proclamation, to extend to persons who may have participated in the existing rebellion in any state or part thereof, pardon and amnesty, with such exceptions and at such time and on such conditions as he may deem expedient for the public welfare. Sec. 14. And be it further enacted, that the courts of the United States shall have full power to institute proceedings, make orders and decrees, issue process, and do all other things necessary to carry this act into effect. Approved July 17, 1862. Citations. ABCD Goldfield, David H. The American Journey. New York. Pearson. pp. 424-426. ISBN 9780205245949. ABCDE United States Congress. The Second Confiscation Act. Retrieved 13 May 2012.